I thought I knew my wife. 13 years of marriage, one beautiful son, a life we built together from nothing. I was wrong about everything. The memory still burns clear in my mind, meeting Amanda at Jason's wedding 15 years ago. I was a groomsman, standing at the altar in an uncomfortable tux, when she walked into the reception hall. Auburn hair catching the light, emerald dress that made every man in the room turn his head. But when our eyes met across that crowded dance floor, something shifted inside my chest. She smiled, and I knew my life had just changed forever. What followed was the kind of courtship you read about in romance novels. 2 years of weekend drives to small towns, midnight conversations that stretched until dawn, building something real together. I was 23, working my way up the corporate ladder at Vincent Logistics. Amanda was 20, fresh out of college with dreams bigger than her bank account. We fit together like puzzle pieces that had been searching for each other our whole lives. When I proposed beside Lake Michigan on a crisp October evening, her father Robert insisted on a prenuptial agreement. I remember sitting in his mahogany-paneled office, feeling small and defensive as he slid the papers across his desk. "It's not personal, Michael," he said, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses. "It's just good business. There's an adultery clause in there. If either party cheats, they forfeit everything in the divorce." I laughed, actually laughed out loud. "I'd never cheat on her anyway, sir. I love your daughter." Amanda barely glanced at the document before signing, more interested in the wedding planning than legal technicalities. "It's just paper, baby," she whispered in my ear that night. "We'll never need it." She was right. For 13 years, we didn't. I'm 38 now, a senior operations manager with a corner office and a salary that provides everything we need. Amanda stopped working when Noah was born 8 years ago, a mutual decision that made sense at the time. I made enough money. She wanted to be present for our son during his formative years. Noah became the center of our universe, this bright, curious little boy who inherited his mother's green eyes and my stubborn streak. But 6 months ago, something changed. It started small, almost imperceptible. Amanda stopped asking about my day when I came home from work. She'd be scrolling through her phone at the dinner table, offering distracted mm-hms when I tried to engage her in conversation. She stopped laughing at my jokes that used to make her double over with laughter. The woman who once waited by the door to kiss me hello now barely looked up from whatever was capturing her attention on that damn screen. The physical distance came next. Every advance I made was met with tired excuses. "Not tonight, I'm exhausted," she would say. "I have a headache," she'd complain. "Can we just cuddle instead?" she'd suggest. 4 rejections this week alone, each one driving a small wedge deeper into my chest. We'd gone from being intimate 3 times a week to maybe once a month, if I was lucky. Last night was typical. I came home to find Amanda curled up on the couch, typing rapidly on her phone with a small smile playing at her lips. Noah was showing me his math homework, chattering about his teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, and the upcoming science fair. I tried to include Amanda in the conversation, asking about her day, about the book club she'd supposedly joined, about the yoga classes she claimed to be taking. One-word answers, distracted nods. That damn smile whenever her phone buzzed with a new message. Later, lying in our king-size bed that suddenly felt enormous, I stared at the ceiling while Amanda slept beside me. She'd turned away from me again, pulling the covers tight around her shoulders like armor. The space between us felt like an ocean, and I was drowning in the silence. Something was wrong. Something fundamental had shifted in the foundation of our marriage, and I couldn't put my finger on what it was. The woman lying next to me felt like a stranger wearing my wife's face. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was imagining things. Then my 8-year-old son showed me a crayon drawing that would destroy everything I thought I knew about my life. Saturday morning arrived with the false promise of normalcy. Amanda announced she was going shopping with friends. Sarah and Jennifer from the neighborhood, she said. She kissed my cheek with the kind of perfunctory affection you'd show a roommate, grabbed her purse, and disappeared into the garage. I watched through the kitchen window as she backed out of the driveway, wondering when that casual kiss had stopped feeling real. Noah bounced into the kitchen as I was mixing pancake batter, his pajamas rumpled and his hair sticking up in 3 different directions. Saturday mornings were our time together, just father and son making breakfast and watching cartoons before the day's responsibilities took over. Dad, look what I drew! Noah came running in from the living room, clutching a piece of construction paper like it contained the secrets of the universe. I wiped my hands on the dish towel and knelt down to his level, the way Amanda had taught me when he was smaller. "Let's see it, buddy," I said. The drawing hit me like a physical blow. Two stick figures on a couch, one clearly larger than the other, positioned in an unmistakably intimate embrace. The larger figure had short brown hair drawn in crayon. The smaller one had long hair colored in auburn, Amanda's exact shade. My smile froze on my face. The kitchen suddenly felt airless, like all the oxygen had been sucked out through the windows. But I kept my voice steady, controlled, even as my heart hammered against my ribs. "This is really good, Noah. Who are these people?" I asked carefully. "That's Mommy and Uncle Jacob." Noah's face lit up with innocent pride. "They sit like this on the couch when they watch TV together." The room tilted. Everything went quiet except for the sound of my own pulse thundering in my ears. "Uncle Jacob?" I managed to ask. "Yeah, he comes over when you're at work. He's really nice. He brings me Skittles and lets me stay up late to watch cartoons. Mommy said not to tell you because it's supposed to be a surprise for later," Noah explained cheerfully. "Jacob Ross. I knew that name immediately. Our neighbor from 2 blocks over. The arrogant 26-year-old who worked as a personal trainer and drove a motorcycle that woke up half the neighborhood. The guy who always seemed to be shirtless when he mowed his lawn, flexing for the soccer moms who jogged past his house. I'd never liked him. Something about his arrogant smirk and the way his eyes lingered on married women at neighborhood barbecues. And he'd been in my house with my wife, while my son colored pictures in the living room. "Does Uncle Jacob come over a lot?" I managed to ask, my voice sounding like it was coming from somewhere far away. "Uh-huh, like 3 times this week. He and Mommy watch grown-up shows and laugh really loud. Sometimes they go upstairs to look at something in your bedroom, but I have to stay downstairs and watch cartoons," Noah answered innocently. "My bedroom." "They'd been in my bedroom." That's great, buddy," I said, hoping he couldn't see my hands shaking. "Why don't you go turn on the TV? I'll bring your pancakes in a minute." Noah bounded off to the living room, leaving me alone with the drawing and the sound of my world cracking apart. I stood there in my kitchen, staring at those 2 crayon figures, feeling something cold and methodical settling in my chest where the shock had been. I wasn't surprised. Not really. Some part of me had known for months that something was wrong. The late-night phone calls she took in the bathroom. The new lingerie I'd never seen her wear. The way she flinched when I touched her like my hands were contaminated. But knowing and having proof were 2 different things entirely. My marriage was over. That much was clear. But Amanda would deny everything if I confronted her now. She'd gaslight me, make me think I was crazy, paranoid, jealous. She'd claim Noah had an overactive imagination, that I was misinterpreting innocent visits from a neighbor. I needed real proof, video evidence, something she couldn't explain away or twist into my fault. More importantly, I remembered that prenup gathering dust in our safe. The adultery clause that Robert had insisted on 13 years ago. If I could prove Amanda's infidelity, she would forfeit everything, the house, our savings, custody of Noah. She'd get nothing. But first, I needed irrefutable evidence. When Amanda returned home that afternoon, arms full of shopping bags and wearing the same casual smile she'd had for months, I was calm. I kissed her cheek, asked about her day, helped carry her packages inside. I played with Noah, made dinner, watched a movie on the couch like nothing had changed. I gave no indication that anything was wrong. That evening, after Amanda went to bed early claiming a headache, I sat in my home office and picked up my phone. My fingers trembled slightly as I scrolled through my contacts and found the number I needed. Ryan Cooper, my childhood friend, the guy who'd been best man at my wedding, a tech specialist who owed me more favors than I could count. The phone rang twice before his familiar voice answered. "Michael, everything okay, man? It's pretty late?" "Ryan," I said, my voice steady and cold. "I need a favor, a big one, and I need you to keep it between us." "What's going on?" he asked, concern evident in his voice. "I'll explain tomorrow. Can you come by the house around 2? Amanda will be out. I replied. There was a pause. Ryan had known me for 20 years. He could hear the tone in my voice, the carefully controlled fury that meant someone was about to pay for their mistakes. "I'll be there," he said simply. "Thanks, brother." "I appreciate this," I answered. "Whatever you need, Michael." "You know that," he assured me. I hung up and sat in the darkness of my office, staring at Noah's drawing where I'd placed it on my desk. 2 stick figures on a couch. My wife and her lover, captured in crayon innocence by the son who'd been forced to witness their betrayal. I had 1 week to turn my home into a surveillance operation without Amanda noticing. 1 week to catch her in the act. 1 week before I could destroy the life she thought she was getting away with. The waiting was over. Now came the hunting. Sunday afternoon, I sent Amanda and Noah to Riverside Park with a fabricated story about needing to catch up on work projects. "Take your time," I told them, forcing a smile as I kissed Amanda's forehead. "Maybe grab lunch somewhere. I'll probably need a couple hours." The moment their car disappeared around the corner, I called Ryan. "They're gone. How long do you need?" I asked. 40 minutes max, he replied. "I'm 5 minutes out." Ryan arrived with a black duffel bag and the grim expression of a man going to war. We'd known each other since 3rd grade, been through divorces, job losses, and family deaths together. He took one look at my face and understood this wasn't about paranoia or marital problems. This was about survival. In my garage, with the door closed and the windows covered, I explained everything. Noah's drawing, Amanda's behavior, Jacob Ross slipping into my house while I worked 60-hour weeks to pay for the life she was destroying. Ryan's jaw tightened as I talked. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment, then shook his head. "Jesus, Michael. I'm sorry, man. Nobody deserves this. Can you help me?" I asked. "Say no more, brother. Let's nail this bitch to the wall," he replied grimly. We worked with military precision. 5 cameras installed in 38 minutes. Front door, back door, living room, main hallway, and the guest bedroom where I suspected most of the activity took place. All hidden behind air vents, inside smoke detectors, tucked behind picture frames. Motion activated with night vision capabilities, streaming directly to cloud backup with live feeds accessible through an app on my phone. Ryan handed me the phone, already configured and tested. "Motion alerts come straight to you." Everything backs up automatically to 3 different servers. The video quality is high definition. Even if she finds one camera, she'll never find them all. I gripped his shoulder. "I can't thank you enough for this." "Don't thank me yet." "Wait until we get the evidence you need," he cautioned. His expression softened slightly. "I'm sorry you're going through this, Michael. You're a good man. You deserve better than what she's doing to you." After Ryan left, I tested the system methodically. Crystal clear footage from every angle. Perfect audio pickup. Motion sensors so sensitive they detected a spider walking across the ceiling. Everything I needed to document Amanda's betrayal in excruciating detail. Then came the hardest part. Waiting. Monday morning, I went to work like nothing had changed. Sat through budget meetings and performance reviews, responding to emails and phone calls while my pocket buzzed with motion alerts every time Amanda moved through the house. False alarms, all of them. The mailman, a FedEx delivery, Amanda herself going about her normal routine. I came home that evening to find her cooking dinner, humming softly while she stirred pasta sauce. She seemed relaxed, almost cheerful. The guilt wasn't eating her alive the way it should have been. If anything, she appeared more content than she'd been in months. "How was your day?" I asked, setting my briefcase by the door. "Good. Quiet. I cleaned the house, did some laundry," she replied without meeting my eyes. "Oh, and I'm thinking about joining that yoga class at the community center." Wednesday evenings, more lies. Building an infrastructure of deception that would give her cover for future encounters with Jacob. I nodded and smiled, played along with her performance. Tuesday passed the same way. Wednesday brought the same routine, work, meetings, false motion alerts that sent adrenaline shooting through my system every time my phone buzzed. But Thursday morning, everything changed. I was sitting in my office, reviewing quarterly reports with my team when my phone vibrated on the desk. Motion detected, backdoor camera. My heart stopped. I opened the app with trembling fingers, switched to live view, and felt the world shift beneath my feet. Amanda was at the back door, looking nervously over her shoulder before opening it. Jacob Ross slipped inside like a predator entering familiar territory. The moment the door closed behind him, he grabbed Amanda and kissed her with the hunger of a man who'd been waiting all morning for this moment. They broke apart, laughing, touching each other with casual intimacy that made my stomach turn. Amanda took his hand and led him toward the hallway, toward the guest bedroom, while Noah's backpack sat on the kitchen counter where he'd left it before school. I watched them disappear from the camera's view, then switched to the guest bedroom feed. They were already undressing each other, Amanda pulling Jacob's shirt over his head while he fumbled with her bra strap. I stood up from my desk so fast my chair rolled backward and hit the wall. My assistant looked up, concerned. "Mr. Carter? Everything all right?" "Family emergency," I said, my voice somehow steady despite the fire burning in my chest. "I need to leave immediately, of course." "Do you need—" she began to ask. "I'll handle it," I interrupted. I was already moving toward the door, phone in hand, watching my wife betray 13 years of marriage in high definition. They were on the bed now, lost in each other, oblivious to the cameras recording every moan, every touch, every moment of their destruction of my family. I was 15 minutes away from home. 15 minutes from ending this charade permanently. I watched them on my phone screen, laughing, touching, walking toward my guest bedroom. My son was at school, safe and innocent, and I was about to give Jacob Ross a lesson in consequences that he'd never forget. The drive home felt like an eternity compressed into 15 minutes. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles had gone white, my phone propped on the dashboard displaying the live feed from my guest bedroom. Amanda and Jacob were completely absorbed in each other, oblivious to everything except their own selfish desires. I could hear Amanda's laughter through the phone speakers, sounds I hadn't heard from her in months. Now being given freely to another man in my bed, I parked 3 blocks away and approached the house on foot, using my key to enter through the front door as quietly as possible. The sounds hit me immediately. Rhythmic creaking from upstairs, Amanda's voice calling out Jacob's name with a passion she'd denied me for half a year. Every sound was a knife twisting deeper into my chest, but I welcomed the pain. It crystallized my resolve into something sharp and unbreakable. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step deliberate and silent. The guest bedroom door was closed, but I could hear everything through the thin wood. Amanda was telling Jacob how much she'd missed him, how good he felt, how she couldn't wait until I was gone on my business trip next month so they could spend an entire weekend together. My business trip. She was already planning future encounters around my schedule, treating me like an obstacle to be navigated rather than the husband she'd promised to love and honor. I stood outside that door for a full minute, listening to my marriage die in real time. Then I turned the handle and walked in. "What the hell?" Jacob scrambled to cover himself, his face going pale as he realized his perfect little secret had just exploded. Amanda screamed, grabbing for the sheet, her face cycling through shock, terror, and something that looked almost like annoyance at being interrupted. "Michael! What are you doing home?" I said nothing at first. I just stood there, taking in the scene. My wife and her lover naked in my guest bed, clothes scattered across the floor, the smell of intimacy thick in the air. Jacob was younger than me, more muscular, exactly the kind of man a bored housewife might fantasize about. But right now, he looked like a terrified boy who'd been caught stealing. "Get up," I said finally, my voice deadly calm. Jacob fumbled for his boxers. "Look, man, I can explain." I said, "Get up," I repeated coldly. He stood, still trying to cover himself, and I could see his hands shaking. Good. He should be afraid. I crossed the room in 3 quick steps and drove my fist into his jaw. The impact sent him staggering backward into the wall, his head bouncing off the drywall with a satisfying thud. "Michael, stop!" Amanda shrieked, but I wasn't listening to her anymore. Jacob tried to raise his hands defensively. "Please, man, wait. This isn't what you think." "It's exactly what I think," I replied through gritted teeth. "You've been sleeping with my wife in my house while my son was downstairs watching cartoons. I grabbed him by the throat and slammed him against the wall again. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please don't." He gasped. I drove my knee into his stomach. Hard. Jacob doubled over, gasping for air, and I could see tears forming in his eyes. The tough guy persona had evaporated the moment he faced real consequences for his actions. "Michael, please," Amanda sobbed, still clutching the sheet around herself. "This was the first time. I swear it meant nothing." I turned to look at her, and she actually flinched at whatever she saw in my face. "Don't lie to me," I said slowly. "Noah told me everything, 3 times this week. Going upstairs to look at something in our bedroom. You've been playing house with this piece of shit while I worked to pay for your life." Jacob tried to stand up straight, still clutching his stomach. "Look, we never meant for this to happen." I grabbed his arm and twisted it behind his back, forcing him face first against the wall. "The only reason you're still breathing is because my son might hear you scream. But if you ever come near my family again, if you even drive down this street, I will kill you. Do you understand me?" "Yes, yes, I understand. Please let me go." He whimpered. I applied more pressure to his arm until I heard him whimper. "Say it. Say you understand," I demanded. "I understand. I'll never come near your family again. I promise," he cried out. I released him and grabbed his clothes from the floor, throwing them at his chest. "Get dressed, get out. If you're not gone in 60 seconds, I'm calling the police and telling them I found a burglar in my house." Jacob scrambled into his clothes. With shaking hands, not bothering with his shoes or belt, Amanda tried to say something to him, but he wouldn't meet her eyes. Whatever fantasy they'd been living was over, shattered by the reality of facing a husband who'd discovered their game. I followed him downstairs and watched him stumble out. The back door, still barefoot, still trying to button his shirt. He didn't look back. When I returned to the guest bedroom, Amanda was sitting on the edge of the bed, fully dressed, crying into her hands. She looked small and pathetic, nothing like the woman I'd fallen in love with 13 years ago. "Michael, please. Can we talk about this? I made a mistake, but we can work through it. We can go to counseling," she pleaded. "No," I said simply. She looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. "What do you mean, no?" "I mean, it's over, Amanda. I'm filing for divorce. The prenup enforces forfeiture of assets for adultery. You get nothing. No house, no savings, no custody of Noah," I explained coldly. "You can't be serious. One mistake—" she started. "This wasn't a mistake," I interrupted. "Mistakes are accidents. This was a choice, multiple choices. Every time you lied to me, every time you brought him into our home, every time you let our son see you with another man, those were all choices." I pulled out my phone and dialed. "Robert, I need you and Helen to come to the house. Now. It's about Amanda." "What happened, Michael? Is she hurt?" he asked, concerned. "Just come. Immediately. And you might want to prepare yourselves for some unpleasant news about your daughter," I replied. I hung up and looked at Amanda, who was staring at me with dawning horror. "You're calling my parents?" "They deserve to know what kind of person they raised," I answered matter-of-factly. For the next 30 minutes, we sat in silence. Amanda tried several times to start a conversation, to explain herself, to negotiate some kind of deal. I ignored her completely. I'd heard enough lies to last a lifetime. When Robert and Helen arrived, I explained everything in calm, factual terms. The affair, the lies, the videos I'd captured, the prenup that would strip Amanda of everything she'd taken for granted. Robert's face turned red with fury. "Is this true?" he demanded, turning to his daughter. Amanda nodded miserably, unable to speak. Helen's reaction was swift and violent. Her hand cracked across Amanda's face with a sound like a gunshot. "How? Could you do this? To Michael? To Noah? In his house?" "Mom, I'm sorry," Amanda began. "Sorry doesn't fix this," Helen snapped, grabbing Amanda by the arm and hauling her to her feet. "You're coming with us, right now." Robert looked at me with something approaching shame. "I'm sorry, son. You deserved better than this. We raised her better than this." I nodded but said nothing. There was nothing left to say. They left 15 minutes later, Helen dragging Amanda to their car while she sobbed apologies that no one wanted to hear. Robert carried her hastily packed suitcase, shaking his head in disgust. The door closed behind them, and suddenly the house was silent except for the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. I stood in my living room, surrounded by the remnants of my marriage, and felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. The hard part was over. Now came the part I was going to enjoy, watching her lose everything she'd taken for granted. Monday morning, I arranged for Noah to stay with Mrs. Logan, our neighbor across the street. She was a retired school teacher who'd watched him during summer breaks, and she agreed immediately when I explained I had some urgent business to handle. "Take all the time you need, dear," she said kindly, her weathered hands gentle on Noah's shoulders. "We'll bake cookies and work on his reading." I drove across town to the offices of Sinclair and Associates, where Margaret Sinclair had built a reputation as the most ruthlessly effective divorce attorney in the city. Her consultation fee alone was more than most people's monthly salary, but she was worth every penny. I'd done my research. Margaret didn't just win cases, she obliterated the opposition. Her office reflected her personality, stark, elegant, intimidating. She was a woman in her 50s with silver hair pulled back in a severe bun and eyes like a hawk evaluating prey. She gestured for me to sit across from her mahogany desk. "Mr. Carter, I understand you need representation in a divorce proceeding?" she asked professionally. I placed a USB drive on her desk. "Video evidence of my wife committing adultery. Multiple instances over several months. High-definition footage with audio, timestamps, irrefutable proof." Margaret plugged the drive into her computer and spent the next 20 minutes reviewing the footage. Her expression never changed, but I could see her professional interest sharpening. When she finished, she turned her attention to the prenuptial agreement I'd brought. She read every word, twice, making notes in the margins. Finally, she looked up at me with something approaching respect. "This is remarkable work, Mr. Carter. The video evidence is crystal clear. Faces, voices, explicit activity, multiple occasions. The prenuptial agreement is ironclad. Your wife's attorney will take one look at this and advise immediate capitulation," she assessed. "What does that mean for me?" I asked. "Complete victory. She gets nothing. No assets, no alimony, minimal custody rights, supervised visitation at best, probably 2 hours per week in a monitored facility. You retain the house, all savings accounts, investment portfolios, vehicles, everything. She walks away with whatever clothes she can carry," she explained with satisfaction. "How long will this take?" I inquired. 6 months if she contests, 6 weeks if she's smart enough to surrender immediately. Given the evidence, I suspect her. Parents' attorney will counsel the latter," she replied confidently. "Good. File the papers today," I instructed. Margaret smiled, and it was the kind of smile that had made opposing attorneys consider career changes. "Consider it done, Mr. Carter. This is going to be a pleasure." The divorce papers were served 3 days later. Amanda tried calling my cell phone 47 times that first day. I blocked her number. She sent emails begging for a chance to explain, to make amends, to save our marriage. I filtered her address to spam. Her parents attempted to mediate, with Robert calling to ask if we could work something out for Noah's sake. "There's nothing to work out," I told him firmly. "My attorney will be in touch with yours. Michael, please." "She made a terrible mistake, but she's still Noah's mother," he pleaded. "She stopped being Noah's mother the moment she brought another man into our house. She can fight for visitation rights in court like any other stranger," I replied coldly. Amanda's attorney reviewed the evidence and prenup, then immediately advised complete surrender. There was simply no legal ground to stand on. She'd violated the adultery clause in the most explicit way possible, with video documentation that would hold up in any court in the country. The divorce proceedings lasted exactly 6 weeks. Amanda contested nothing, she couldn't. Every attempt her attorney made to argue for leniency was met with more video evidence, more documentation of lies and betrayal. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, seemed personally offended by Amanda's conduct. "The court finds clear and convincing evidence of adultery," she announced at the final hearing. "All assets are awarded to the petitioner. Custody of the minor child is granted to the father. The respondent is granted supervised visitation 2 hours per week to be conducted at the Family Services Monitoring Facility." Amanda collapsed into tears at the defendant's table. Her attorney patted her shoulder awkwardly, but there was nothing more he could do. She'd lost everything. But I had one more fear gnawing at the back of my mind. One last piece of uncertainty I needed to resolve. What if Noah wasn't my biological son? What if Amanda's betrayal went back further than I'd discovered? I ordered a paternity test without telling anyone, using a discreet service that guaranteed results within 72 hours. For 3 days, I barely slept, imagining the worst-case scenario, that the boy I'd raised and loved for 8 years wasn't actually mine. The envelope arrived on a Thursday morning. I sat in my car outside the post office, hands shaking as I tore it open. 999% probability of paternity. Noah was mine. Relief flooded through me like a physical force. I sat there for 10 minutes, breathing deeply, feeling a weight I didn't realize I'd been carrying finally lift from my shoulders. Whatever else Amanda had taken from me, she hadn't taken my son. Meanwhile, Amanda's new reality was harsh and unforgiving. Her parents kicked her out after 6 weeks when she refused to take responsibility for destroying her marriage. "You made your bed," Helen told her coldly. "Now lie in it alone." She found a studio apartment above a Chinese restaurant, barely affordable on her waitress salary at a downtown diner. The woman who'd once spent $300 on a single shopping trip was now clipping coupons and walking to work to save gas money. She tried reaching out to Jacob, hoping to salvage something from the wreckage, but Jacob had vanished completely. Word around the neighborhood was that he'd been caught with another married woman, and that husband hadn't been as civilized as I'd been. No one had seen him since. Amanda sent me text messages begging for a chance to talk, to explain, to see Noah outside the supervised visits. I blocked every number she used. When she tried approaching me at Noah's school, I filed a restraining order. Her supervised visitation sessions were pathetic affairs. Noah was polite but distant, answering her questions with one-word responses, asking when he could go home to Dad. Amanda would spend most of the 2 hours crying, begging the social worker to let her call me, to arrange a meeting, to somehow fix what she'd broken beyond repair. The social worker's reports were damning. The child shows no emotional attachment to the mother. He appears uncomfortable and eager to leave. The mother's behavior is manipulative and self-serving rather than focused on the child's well-being. After 6 months, Amanda's visitation was reduced to once per week. After a year, it became twice per month when she missed several appointments due to work conflicts. Noah stopped asking about her entirely. Amanda lost everything. Her family, her son, her home, her security, her future. All for a few hours of pleasure with a coward who'd abandoned her the moment things got difficult. But I didn't care about her suffering anymore. I had what mattered: my son, my peace of mind, and my self-respect. The rest of it was just justice taking its natural course.